Good news, Illini fans. The number one offense for the better part of last year is going to continue to innovate. Locked On Illini. Let's go.
You are Locked On Illini, your daily podcast on the Illinois Fighting Illini. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Illini. My name is Sunny Verma. You can find me at IlliniCast. You can find me at the Sunny V on Twitter. Thank you for making Locked On Illini your first listen every single day. A simple reminder, we are free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Simple reminder, if you enjoy daily Illini content, I'm the only one giving it to you here on YouTube. So hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We are so close to hitting that magical 1,000 subscriber mark. So any help you can do on that end would be amazing for this channel and this community. Today's episode is going to be a fun one. We're going to be talking about Tyler Underwood. Many consider the brains behind our offense last year. Well, he had a very interesting interview on the radio on Friday, I believe it was, and he talks about the continuing innovation of the Illinois basketball offense and why we can look forward to it constantly changing for the better. Also, we're going to be previewing the running back room. We're bringing back Justin from Volume Picks to talk about highlighting Kaden Feagin, but then also, again, the season's right around the corner. We're going to talk about the rest of the running back room. So it's about time to get ready for the season. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As playoffs wind down, the sports stop sporting like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone, every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. I don't think I'm going out on a limb to say that while there have been better overall teams than last year's Illini basketball squad, I don't think that I've ever seen one that I enjoyed watching more on the offensive side of the football. So about halfway through the season, they just stumbled onto a strategy which seemingly worked to the point where I think right before the UConn game, we were the number one team offensively when it comes to Kenpom. It might have been the week before because I remember UConn destroying San Diego State, which technically had them jump us. But regardless, for the better part of last year, our University of Illinois Fighting Illini had the best offense in all of college basketball. And it's not hard to see what they were kind of doing. And I've been trying to relay this to you guys during the off season here when it comes to their offense. You know I've used the term booty ball a lot because it's become popular in Illinois lore the last couple seasons. First it was Penn State doing it to us, and then us kind of adapting to the same strategy, initially doing it with Ty Rodgers. It didn't work quite as well, but then once we inevitably switched it over to Marcus Domask, well, then things just basically went to the moon when it came to our offensive efficiency. But what I guess I'm trying to say is our offense isn't booty ball. Our offense is matchup exploitation. Matchup exploitation. Putting the pressure on the defense. So as I was saying, I believe it was on the Friday episode of Tay and Piper on the radio, and I will have this interview in the description here if you guys wanted to listen. They actually invited Tyler Underwood, the son of Brad Underwood, onto the show, and he kind of discussed what the formula for this Illini team is, both his impact last year and his impact moving forward in this summer that we're essentially replacing 10 guys, and what the plan is. And I guess the overall gist of what I'm trying to say and what he is almost confirming on Friday is our offense isn't just booty ball, it's very adaptable. It's moving in sync. It's trying to basically put the defense in a very uncomfortable position. It's kind of like what the NFL has already kind of adopted, when it comes to 2-minute drills or whatnot. Brad Underwood and the Illini are basically putting a lot of pressure on the defense to be able to make the adjustments that they need to essentially on the fly. Now, I'm going to go over a couple of quotes that Tyler Underwood had on the interview, which, by the way, they did a fantastic job with. So definitely check it out once you're done watching this. But, he talked again about how they've been essentially having 14-second, 18-second, 24-second shot clock over summer. Forcing the offense to make decisions quickly, find the exploitation possibilities ASAP and attacking it and going for it. And in a lot of ways, that absolutely, it makes a lot of sense as long as you have the personnel for it, which right now, the way this team is being built is something we do have. But Tyler talked about booty ball, and honestly, we may not be seeing it next year as much as we saw it this past offseason. I thought this quote was very insightful, and I hope you will too. Tyler says, "It'll always be whatever is the most efficient way to get two defenders to the ball. Being completely honest, it hasn't been one of our most efficient ways with this roster, which is fine. I think it's something you have to practice a good amount to get good at. It'll always be there. Ben Hummerkaus, Trey White, those guys are both capable of it. But when you have guards like Kasparis, Will Riley, Colin Boswell, who can get two to the ball in ball screens, one thing we're experimenting a ton with is setting a lot more guard-on-guard screens, which is what we call matchup hunting. Booty ball is essentially just another iteration of matchup hunting. So we'll see where it goes. It'll always be a package if we get a smaller guy. What we've always tried to do this offseason is expand our matchup hunting. And we've studied a lot of NBA, and I'm excited to see what we can do about it. Always be the attacker, never the attackee. Underwood also talked about what 7'1", apparently now close to 250-pound Tomislav Visic brings to this offense, which, again, wants to space out as much as it can, have 4 or 5 guys out that can shoot. Tyler said, "Philosophically, we'd always like to have 4 or 5 guys on the court who can shoot the basketball at all times. To have someone at 7'1" who can step out, stretch the defense, and shoot the basketball, open up driving lanes for the guards is huge for us." Tyler did go on to say that expect to see a lot more 3-pointers on next year's team compared to what we saw last year. And, whether that's some sort of data that they've analyzed or if that's just based on the talent that they have seen over summer and realized that could be a strength that they want to take advantage of compared to last year's roster. It looks like we're going to be seeing more 3-pointers in the upcoming season. And last but not least, and again, please, I'm trying to leave some parts out because I want you guys to listen to the interview. He does a fantastic job. Tyler talks about something they practice in the summer called shot profile or developing a healthy shot profile. Here's a quote. "I think the most important thing for a highly efficient offense is a healthy shot profile. That is something we've done a lot this summer. We play what we call a shot selection game, and each shot, depending on where it is on the court, has a different point value. We're naturally teaching our guys what a good shot is. With some of these transfers, they're like, this is crazy. I have a whole new appreciation for shot selection. It's a way for us to teach them the why behind the what." Now, analytics has essentially taken over sports, at least from when I first started watching them 25 years ago. Baseball first and foremost, more than any other sport, but you can definitely see its influence on basketball, on football, and some of the other sports. And I guess I do appreciate that Brad Underwood, Tyler Underwood, the rest of the staff, is leading this program to be on the forefront of keeping tabs on analytics and making sure that they're ahead of the curve. And you want other teams to be catching up to you. It's nice to know that as an Illini fan, at least for the next foreseeable couple of years, it looks like we're going to be a fun team to watch on the offensive side. And right now, I say this all the time, it's just a really, really good time to be an Illini fan. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. All right, when you think Brett Bielema, when you think Illinois Big Ten football, you think running backs. And in particular with Brett Bielema, his streak of having 1,000-yard rushers came to an end last season, mostly due to injuries. There was at least one point during the season last year where every running back was actually hurt. So the main focus on the team moving forward now is going to be on running back Kaden Feagin, who obviously he came in, I think in the 5th or 6th game of the season. And then all of a sudden, I don't think it's by coincidence that once he settled in as a starting running back, the offensive line issues fixed itself. That's when you saw Illinois kind of make a run towards respectability. We had a pretty decent halfway middle section of the season last year when it comes to wins and losses, and Kaden had a lot to do with that. Unfortunately, he was hurt at the end, but first and foremost, he's the guy who I figured I would focus on when it comes to previewing the running backs room. And in order for me to do that and to get some little help, I wanted to bring in Justin. Justin, welcome back.
Hey, good to be back.
Justin, again, is from Volume Pigs. I actually had him on a previous show a couple of weeks ago talking about Pat Bryant. I think you heard my opener.
Yeah.
You know, when it comes to this Illinois team, there looks to be a lot of balance that's going to be required. Luke is going to be entering his second year as a starting quarterback. The wide receiver room got a significant upgrade a couple weeks ago when we were able to bring in Zachary Franklin. But first and foremost, it's going to be a Brett Bielema team. We're going to be counting on that offensive line, and we're going to be counting on our running backs. Now, what do you think of my statement about talking about Kaden Feagin being the next in the long line of 1,000-yard rushers for a Brett Bielema offense?
Yeah, well, it certainly seems that way, right? I mean, just as a neutral observer, and I'm just reading the beat reports and what those that cover Illini football have been saying this offseason, that seems to be the general thought process. A lot of optimism around Kaden Feagin. Obviously, he was a true freshman last year. And you mentioned it, running back room was kind of in flux. There were injuries, including I think he got injured. But he got his shot somewhere down the line, did well with those carries. And now, by all indications, especially with one of his backfield teammates, Reggie Love, transferring out in the offseason, that's sort of an indication probably of how that hierarchy stands and what the plan is going forward. You mentioned that streak of 1,000-yard rushes. Yeah, so just to put it precisely for those at home, Brett Bielema, if you look at all of his the last 15 seasons that he spent as a head coach, 12 of those seasons have featured a running back who has topped the 1,000-yard rushing marks. It's quite a strong pattern. It's quite suggestive of what kind of offense he wants to run. Although we talked about it last time, right? They're not just running the ball every play. Mm-hmm. I would more so classify this offense as they keep the same guys on the field a lot at every position. So some teams rotate a lot, right? Some teams keep the same 3 receivers on the field all the time, right? Ohio State's one of them. Illinois is another. And that sort of has a lot of benefits for those individual player stats. Certainly the running back position matches that profile as well, right? So typically under Bielema, his offense it's one running back who gets the majority of the carries if there is a guy who sort of stands out in that room. And again, by all indications, just from reading what the writers are saying, again, I'm not in the meeting rooms or at the practice field, but just going off of what the beat writers have been saying, sounds like Feagin is that guy. And again, had a standout year as a true freshman. He's a massive player. He's listed at like 6'3", 250. So there shouldn't really be any questions on sort of can he handle that workload, that durability. And yeah, I mean, I'm excited. I think he's going to be probably 250, maybe 300 carry type player. We've seen that recently with Chase Brown. So yeah, no, I'm right there with you, man.
And I was at Big Ten Media Days last week, and Brett Bielema was very forward about his enthusiasm for Kaden. Apparently, they put him through some drills, and he's been reaching benchmarks that only the elite NFL players were reaching, and it's something we're all very excited for. Now, Justin, you wrote an article about Kaden a couple weeks ago, and I reached out to you to eventually bring you back onto the show because I thought you had a very interesting comparison to what Kaden could be the 2.0 version of. Do you recall who it was, and why do you see that comparison?
Yeah, sure. So the comparison in the title of that article was with another former Big Ten running back, similar style, Braylon Allen. Braylon Allen, very similar sort of physical profile, right? Sort of 6'2", maybe 6'3", came in, as linebacker prospect around 240. Feagin, physical profile, very similar, 6'3", 250. He's listed at now. I think he was an athlete coming out of high school, so there was sort of some ambiguity of what he would be at the next level. So similar sort of career trajectory, right? Gets on campus to another Big Ten West team. Well, I guess they've done away with those divisions. I don't know if that still exists, but a big school, Big Ten school, very similar, Wisconsin, Illinois. And, Braylon Allen obviously had, a couple productive seasons there for the Badgers, had a pretty good career there. So the comparison I thought was kind of an easy one to sort of, link together just because the physical profile, right? And sort of the trajectory from high school being an athlete to sort of getting molded into a running back. But it sounds like, and you mentioned it from the Big Ten Media Days, that Feagin might be, a faster player than Allen was. Allen, physical running back, but top end speed maybe was a little bit more of a limitation. Feagin, you mentioned sort of the equipment they had put on him. They were testing his speed. And I believe Bielema, and I quoted him in that article too, he said something to the effect of, in all his years coaching, he's never had an athlete that big run that fast, something to that effect.
Mm-hmm.
So when you hear that,
again, he actually repeated at Big Ten Media Days.
Okay.
He's super excited about Kaden, so I'm glad you're kind of confirming those thoughts.
Well, yeah, and again, like if the head coach is super excited about the player, then naturally, speaking as a college fantasy football player, then you're super excited about the player, right? And then when you look at their track record and their background, similar to when Braylon Allen played under Paul Christ there at Wisconsin before he got fired, they had a nice long-standing tradition of 1,000-yard runners as well. It's a very similar sort of situation to Braylon Allen when he was entering into, I guess, his sophomore year a couple seasons ago. It's a very similar sort of profile, I would say, here of Kaden Feagin.
And another thing, Justin, that I think will play well to Kaden's prospects next year is the balance. I kind of alluded to that when I introduced this segment. Luke entering his second year as a quarterback. We've got some decent wide receivers, especially with Zachary Franklin coming in. Pat Bryant, who you and I have already talked about, sliding to number 2, and now we have true sophomore Malik Elzy taking a more comfortable number 3 role. There's going to be balance on offense between the running backs and wide receivers. And again, that's another stat that you're very well researched in. So can you kind of just elaborate on what I just said?
Yeah, of course. So, as you mentioned, I mean, in my publication, I'm doing a lot of writing about a lot of different teams. And whenever I do these, I look at the system, the play calling tendencies. And typically when you're looking at sort of more run heavy teams, and Illinois under Brett Bielema and his OC Brett Looney.
Barry Looney Jr.
Barry Looney. I knew it was a B. Sorry, apologies.
No, okay.
Looney as well, coming over from UTSA. Both of these guys are very similar in terms of their tendencies of run-pass split, something like 55-45 in favor of the run. But something that's interesting or quite unique about Illinois, they're one of the few teams that fits this profile, is while they are a run-heavy team, their seconds per play average, which is sort of a measure of how fast they're calling plays, how quickly they're moving up and down the field, was one of the fastest in the FBS. I think they were top 20 or top 25. There are not very many run-heavy teams. I think Jacksonville State's another one that have both of those characteristics. Usually the fastest teams on a seconds per play basis are the more pass-heavy teams, air raid teams, just by construction of how the offense is. The run-heavy teams are a little slower, clunkier. So again, speaking from a fantasy standpoint, when you're looking at that running back position specifically, this is a very unique sort of profile in the sense that not only is the touch concentration very high underneath these coaches, they are extremely run heavy. Obviously, the offensive line is expected to be good again this year. And then finally, as the cherry on top, they run plays quickly. That's almost like a perfect recipe for, a lot of production from that one running back, assuming he doesn't get hurt. And I think one of the writers this offseason mentioned it. If he doesn't get hurt, he should top 1,000 yards. Speaking about Feagin, he should top 1,000 yards with ease. And I would agree. I mean, I would assume probably closer to 1,500 yards. I'm looking closer to that Chase Brown. I think it was 2022 when he had that big year, something like that. Because this system really is outstanding in terms of providing the foundation for a extremely productive running back.
If Kaden can come close to that 1,200 or 1,300 yard season like Chase Brown had a couple seasons ago, I think Illinois is in line for a pretty good season next year. Justin, thank you again so much for coming back on. One time again, before you leave, just let the folks know where they can find you.
Yeah, sure. So I think it's in the graphic. It is, at Volume Picks on Twitter. On my profile, you can find the link to my Substack and everything else if you're interested. Look forward to coming back on at some point in the future to speak about more Illini players.
Thanks again, Justin.
Thank you.
I love sports. I love them so much I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games and the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open up the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right, there's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head on over to FanDuel.com and start making the most of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. So for the most part, most of the focus, and deservedly so, is going to be on Kaden Feagin when it comes to being that big bull running back that Illinois is going to be counting on next season. But if I'm going to be completely honest, I also think that running back room is probably the most talented room that we have on our football team next year. There's just a lot of really high quality, talented players there. It's just a simple matter of keeping them healthy. We couldn't do it last year, and we're definitely going to be hoping that we can keep them healthy this year for us to be able to have that balanced offense that Illinois is going to need to help quarterback Luke Altmaier out. First and foremost, we talked about Kaden Feagin. Let's just talk about Aiden Loughery. Loughery is one of the guys who a lot of people were talking about from the spring game. He had a fantastic spring game. He's a guy who's entering his third season, but he's also had to deal with injuries. He's only had 19 rushing attempts for 90 yards in his first 2 years, totaling just 10 games. But when the guy is healthy, Aiden is fast. He's kind of the opposite of what we think of Kaden. Kaden is more of a big bull who just happens to be fast. Aiden is more of the lightning to the thunder and lightning pairing between the two. And Aiden is one of the guys we're hoping is going to be able to provide to keep the defense off balance when it comes to the two guys that we have, just because they're so stylistically different. Aiden, if you recall, is the guy who we won a recruiting battle over Iowa a couple seasons back. It was a key victory for the staff, and hopefully this year Aiden's going to be able to stay healthy and stay on the field and be able to provide the balance to that running back room. Speaking of staying healthy, that's been the story of Josh McCray's career, a guy who, the way we're talking about Kaden Feagin now is what we were kind of discussing Josh McCray, especially after his freshman season. He's a guy who, you hand the ball off to, he can get 3-4 yards every single time, but it's just a guy who cannot stay healthy. He's been out the last 2 seasons have been unfortunately marred by injury. McCray was a guy who I actually feared would be a transfer candidate, losing his role as the number 1 guy. But it really seems like Brett Bielema really, really likes him. So much so that whenever we're recruiting running backs and they're in Champaign on their official visits, most of the time they're rooming with Josh McCray. Josh McCray is the guy that Brett has assigned to, talk about the overall culture of the program here. And obviously, the staff and Josh enjoy each other. They really want to make this work. Good news is it looks like Josh McCray's healthy. He participated in practices thus far. He's one of the few running backs to have done so. So again, we're at the point now that we're not really counting on Josh McCray to be healthy, but should he stay healthy, we're talking about adding another very significant asset when it comes to the running back side. Now, the next two guys were someone who I think might have the highest ceilings. Jordan Anderson, if you watched his high school tape, man, he was fun to watch. And I was very excited when ultimately the Illini landed his commitment. Unfortunately, in his first year in training camp last year, he tore his ACL. You're talking about 6'4", 245 pounds. A massive, massive player who was the number 16th ranked player in Illinois when we got him. He hasn't done much at the college level thus far, but I think this year it's mainly going to be about, I'm repeating myself at this point, just staying healthy. If Jordan can get a couple carries and just start getting acclimated to the college football game, I think it'll benefit him and that room moving forward in future years. And last but not least, I'm going to be talking about Khalil Valentine, one of the major wins for Brett Bielema last season, a 4-star prospect out of Arizona, I believe he was. A 4-star prospect who, I don't know if you recall, once we lost Darian Dupree to Wisconsin, we kind of zeroed in on Khalil Valentine and were able to nab his recruitment. I don't think that he's going to be playing all that much this year, mainly because of the 4 guys I just talked about in front of him. It's just a really, really talented group. But Khalil is one of those guys who he rushed for 1,300 yards as a senior, averaging 6.5 yards per carry while scoring 19 touchdowns. And he caught 31 catches for 358 yards and a touchdown. Just very talented overall type of player. He was a top 400 prospect. Again, you're talking about offers from Oregon, Arizona, Nebraska, Washington. The kid has the talent, and it was a very significant recruiting win for Brett. This year, if he plays a lot, it could probably mean one of two things. Either A, the running backs ahead of him, unfortunately, got the injury bug like last year, or B, he's just completely excelling in practices and fall camp, and all of a sudden he jets up the depth chart. So overall, when it comes to the running back room, the key is just keep the boys healthy. A solid offensive line. We have Luke Altmaier entering his second full season as a starting quarterback, who's going to be throwing to Zachary Franklin and Pat Bryant, and hopefully an improving Malik Elzy. We're really going to be counting on those running backs to provide that 1,000-yard rusher again that we're used to with Brett, and just keeping the defense honest and not making poor Luke Altmaier run for his life after every play anymore. And there you have it. That's it for today's version of Locked On Illini. Again, if you can, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. It costs you guys nothing. My goal is to see if we can hit that 1,000 mark by the end of the week. I think we can. I think we're like some 60 or so away. If you're listening to this on the audio side, please leave a 5-star review. That really, really helps. I didn't realize how much it helps, but it just helps me spread in the algorithm. Thank you for making Locked On Illini your first listen today. Now go check out the Locked On College Football podcast. From NIL deals to never-ending conference realignment rumors, Spencer McLaughlin gets you ready for an exciting season on the gridiron. You can find the link to the Locked On College Football show in the description, so you don't need to search. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It's going to be an exciting week. We got some exciting episodes lined up for you this week. ILL, love you guys.